All right, I just have to say it. I am so much more excited about this offseason class in the middle of the process than I ever was last year with the offseason class. I feel like I like the draft more. I feel like UDFAs, while, hey, you can get excited about them, you cannot. Today we're going to talk about just an absolute speedster from the East. All right, Jacobi James, and we're going to talk about him and how he's a relative unknown, but there could be things about him that absolutely make sense. I'll also tell you who he reminds me of when I'm watching the film, but we're also going to talk about who Brad Holmes' favorite wide receiver in the draft was. Yeah, he gave that information away. He said who his favorite was. He said it didn't mean he's the best wide receiver, but he's my favorite wide receiver. So we're going to get into that in this one as well. But are you at the same point that I'm at? What is your excitement level right now for the Detroit Lions? Here's the way I look at it. When you are 15-2, you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot to get a ton better. You just need to maintain and slightly improve. But I strongly feel that this is a draft class that can improve immediately. All right, you're looking at a defensive tackle in the first round that is going to play in the rotation / starter, you could call it, role. You are, especially before Lee McNeil comes back. In the second round, you drafted a guard that is almost certainly going to start for you this year. Like, that is really good stuff to get on a team that already is filled and very, very good. So let's get into that. But now let's take a second and let's talk about this guy that I'm talking about. It is wide receiver Jacobi James. And here's the pitch. This is just right from hustlebelt.com, and they actually take team by team, and they talk about players that could be there. And it says Kenny James was very often the best player on the Minutemen offense. He played at UMass. Whenever he was on the field, thanks to his electric speed and agility from multiple positions. His ascent was a bit of a surprise. All right, this is the Brad Holmes special. Given his lack of production over at FCS Eastern Washington, where he had 61 catches for 825 yards and 4 touchdowns in 37 games. Then this year, he plays at a higher level of competition with UMass. By the way, had a remarkable touchdown grab, all right, where he caught it in between 2 Georgia defenders and then outran them to the end zone. Look it up. He said, however, the results this year, 50 catches, 836 yards. In 1 year, he was more productive than he was in 37 games beforehand. More touchdowns, more receiving yards. All right, and he more than doubled, all right? It says nearly doubled. He more than doubled the next best wide receiver, which is 334. All right, I'm not great at math, but I'm much better to know that 836 is more than double. All right, so this is exactly where the draft projection said he was, but I need to talk to you about his athleticism. Can we just talk about that for a second? He had an RAS score of 9.58. And if it wasn't for the poor height and weight distribution, all right, he was a beast. Not just that. He's strong. Look at that bench press. That tells me if you can coach him up and get him doing the right things, his speed is elite. His agility is elite. His explosion is elite. Like, this is a guy that has all of these different things that you wouldn't even necessarily expect. And these are the kind of guys that I love taking a flyer on because speed kills. We talk about it all the time, right? Size kills. Strength kills. But speed is the ultimate equalizer on a football field. And when you have guys that are sub 4.4 guys all around, they can play a very specific role and they can do it effectively. So when you're asking me who this guy, when I'm watching his tape, reminds me of, it is an unrefined Kali Freeman. That is what he reminds me of. He's not this guy. I mean, he is almost mechanic or robotic in his running, but he's extremely fast. He's not tall, but he's very strong. And like all of these things come together. I saw him catching with his hands, which is a really, really good sign. I saw him making contested catches, like all of these things. I'm wondering if he's simply a late bloomer. When it comes to this, like if all of a sudden he got there, was reading different things, there was a Q&A with him, and they asked him, what is your favorite part about being a football player? He said the offseason. The workout warrior stuff, like getting better with my brothers. That's what he said. Improving aspects of my game that I couldn't necessarily improve upon during the season. He loves working out. He's a workout warrior, as clear by the fact that he's one of the stronger wide receivers at the combine this year. And so, like, you can see that is a good work ethic. I'm wondering if this is a guy that has always had the skills, but it finally clicked up here for him as he was just a little bit older in his age. Like, there is absolutely, that is something that could be a thing. All right. So now this is interesting. All right. I want to talk about another wide receiver that Brad Holmes fell in love with. And he said during his appearance on 97 The Ticket, he admitted that Tesla may not have been the best receiver in this year's class. Duh, he was picked 70th. Tesla was his favorite. And here's his quote. Probably the pick that was the most questioned, I would say, is Isaac Tesla. I can say that he was my favorite wide receiver in this draft. I'm not saying that he's the best wide receiver in the draft, but favorite wide receiver in the NFL draft. So what does that mean? What does it mean? And he went on to talk about that. He went on to elaborate it. Again, he said, yeah, we love the player, but you start looking at it. We're at 102, and you have this player, and take away the player, the specific player. It's just, and here, I'll get this so you can actually see it. Why not, right? He said the specific player, it's just this player graded at a certain level. Maybe it's only 2 or 3 of these guys left on the entire board, Holmes said. You're sitting down there at 102, and you look up, and it's like, okay, we love this player. But also there's probably about 8 teams that are still looking for a wide receiver. So you've got to take all those things into an account. Obviously, it all starts with you've got to have conviction of the player. Well, if he's your favorite player, my guess is that you're going to have conviction. And if you know Brad Holmes, you don't become a favorite player just because you get a little man crush on somebody, because you're just like, ooh, I like it. I like his RAS score. I love his stuff. No. Look, we understand his RAS score, but what Brad Holmes loved was what he did. He said, you see a guy that's big, that's long. He's a smooth strider. He can accelerate. He can run. He's a hands catcher. He can play special teams, and he can block. So he can do all the things that we ask him to. He also talked about how, yes, in Arkansas's offense, there weren't a lot of opportunities, but he was extremely impressed with how well he took advantage of the few opportunities he had. And by the way, that's a really hard thing to do, isn't it? Like, if you are not in the flow of the game, if you're not consistently being targeted, if you're not being used in the passing game, isn't it easy as a wide receiver to maybe take a play off or maybe not give 100% on a block? And that's not what you get with an Isaac Tesla. What he saw was a guy who consistently had his motor running on high, and a guy that continued to play hard, even if he was in an offensive system that, quite frankly, didn't work. And so I love guys like this. And I really do think when you look at him, when you look at our 7th-round pick at wide receiver, and then when you look at Jacobi James, who I just talked about, like, all of a sudden you start realizing, like, oh, man, we actually did a pretty good job at wide receiver in this draft, and I think it could be a big help for us going forward. All right, hope you like this. Hit that subscribe button if you did, and hopefully we'll see you on a lot more videos. See ya.